transformation. We define it as a large amount of change in a small amount of time. Right? It is a revolutionary process as opposed to an evolutionary process. To the outside world, it kind of looks like magic. Right? But the reality is, it's just a result of focused work and rigorous adherence to a consistent, coherent process. Yeah, I know that's last year's, but we're trying to ignore that last play. All right, so watch this. I tell everybody, this is kind of embarrassing. It took me 10 years to figure this out, but thankfully for you, it's only going to take about 3 minutes to explain it. Right? So if you really want to transform an organization, or yourself for that matter, there's 3 things you need to pay attention to. Right? First is the mood in the organization. Now, mood and emotion are not the same thing. The closest term you're probably familiar with is morale. They're a little bit different, but let's just go with that. And they come in 2 flavors, green and red. Right? Green is technically what we call generative. Let's just go with positive. Red is degenerative, negative. Positive moods are things like ambition, confidence, trust. Negative ones you can read there. Here's the deal. How many of you have worked in startup companies? Okay, what's the best thing about working in a startup? The mood, right? The freedom, the excitement, the ambition. Nobody ever started a business from resignation. Oh, this will never work. Let's start a company. Yeah. Woohoo! Yeah. Sign me up. I want to work for them. Right. Success is not us. Yeah. No. Right? Now, what happens as a result of our antiquated management practices, there's a direct correlation between the number of employees you have and the amount of time the organization has been around and the prevalence of that red list. Right? And again, many of you are here because you said no to that redness, yes? Yes, okay. Now, up here, we've got, on the management practices, we've got those managers who actually know how to constitute, lead, and manage teams. They have the practices for cooperation, coordination. They know how to design what we call workflows. Down here, you've got the old hierarchical command and control, management equals supervision characters, right? Now, the bottom scale are your systems and processes, and this is an interesting scale. It's a scale of coherence. On the negative end is incoherent, positive end is coherent. And by that what we mean is the systems and processes must be coherent with the declared mood and practices that you want. So for example, people come to us all the time. They say, hey, we understand that you're some of the best people in the world about putting teams together. Can you get this department, division, whatever it is, to work together as a team? And we will invariably say, we can produce the short-term effect of teamwork, but tell me about your compensation system. Oh, it only rewards individual effort. Then you can forget about having a team in the long run because your comp system is incoherent with a mood of trust and acceptance and doesn't work with the practices of cooperation and coordination. Not going to happen. Now, without any value being assigned to the blue box, in every organization, those 3 variables produce a stasis, a steady state, right? Now, think about this. 99 times out of 100, when people say they want to transform the business, which of those axes do they start on? Systems and processes. Why? Because we live in the delusion that because we can see it and measure it, it must be the thing that matters. It's not. All right, now, many of you remember the whole thing about re-engineering, and now we've got all these new CPMs, we're going to have all these new systems and processes, and they make these big promises, and then what actually happens is that if you're lucky. Now the other dilemma is, ooh, it turned pink, look at that. Cool, now this is the motivational stuff. Let's go get fired up, let's get motivation, we'll get all inspired, and you get people really jazzed up, but then they come back to work, and what happens? Oh, nothing changes, all right? So for them, unfortunately, something does change. They get more cynical. You gave me a little taste of what it could be like, but you're not supporting it with anything else? Oh, you think we were in a bad mood before? Watch this. All right, so what we learned a long time ago is you need to do all 3 of these at the same time. Got to work all three axes at the same time. Same is true for you as an individual. If I want to transform myself, I'm not going to transform myself out of resignation, am I? No. So I need to figure out what is it I'm ambitious about, what do I trust myself to be able to do, what practices do I need to put in place, and what are the systems I need to set up for myself to reinforce the new practices. Make sense? Okay. Now, the place where you do need to start here is not systems and processes, but mood. The axiom that we use is mood is everything. If you've got paper, write that down. Mood is everything. It's not the only thing, but it's everything, because if you don't get that right, nothing else you do is going to matter. All right, now here's the analogy. In your life, how many of you have painted your house before? The outside. All right, what's the first thing you got to do if you're going to paint your house? Scrape off the old paint. All right, how many of you like that job? No, that sucks, as we say. All right, now, if you are A, uninformed and don't know you need to scrape off the old paint, or B, you're too lazy and you don't want to do it, and you just slap the new paint on, what happens? It's going to come right off. This is the same thing. You might have some really great systems and process. You might have some really cool new management practice. Try slapping that on top of resignation, resentment, arrogance, and cynicism and see how long it lasts. Right? This is my complaint about most of this new fad about engagement. Right? We're trying to do happy clappy on top of that red list. Doesn't work. Now, to be clear, you're never going to eliminate all that stuff, but if you don't go in and clear some of that out first, there's no point doing any of the rest of it. So, three central things, as we said. There's mood, management practices, systems, and processes. If we're not working all three, it's not going to be successful. There's three things if you're in a bigger organization that you also have to have, which is consistent executive support. These things are disruptive. They don't tend to stick if you don't have executives driving them. You've got to have critical mass. If you've got thousands of people, you can't just work with 25 and expect everything to be different. We've got to get a critical mass going, and you've got to have momentum. All right? The notion here is real simple. Everybody is all in favor of change as long as it doesn't mean me and it doesn't mean now. All right? Other than that, it's a perfectly good idea. They should get busy. All right? All right? All right? So you got to keep the process moving once it starts. It's not something you can kind of dribble out over time, because the inertia of the past is really strong. All right? Making sense? All right. This is just a map for how we typically do these things. I'm not going to do the sales pitch, but what matters here is you can see it spread out over time. Right? So we build blocks on top of each other, and we put people together in little project teams. We put coaches. So Paul's one of our coaches. He works with project teams. That's how they learn the new practices, is by doing the real work. So we take projects that are your projects, not our projects, and show you how to put the new practices to work by doing what you're going to do anyway. Let's just show you a different way to do it. Our model looks like that. We start with values. So again, that's the key to everything. Then we put in the new practices. And then while that's happening, we work with you to put in your systems and processes so that by the time we're done, you've adjusted your comp system, your rewards, your recognition, your promotions, et cetera, so that it reflects then the utilization and development of all the new practices.